The premise of Real Housewives has always included a specific kind of woman, one who is adjacent to enormous wealth, usually through marriage, and who has agreed to let cameras document the life that money built. Sometimes that marriage was a love story with financial benefits. Sometimes the cameras caught the love dissolving in real time. And sometimes, more often than the glossy production, would prefer to acknowledge the marriage was primarily a transaction, and what the cameras actually captured was the price of that transaction being paid. These are 6 of those stories. Each one is different. Each one ends in a way that illuminates something specific about what it actually costs to choose a lifestyle over a life partner. We begin in Orange County, where the whole thing started. Alexis Bellino arrived on Real Housewives of Orange County in Season 5, introduced as the wife of Jim Bellino, a wealthy businessman 15 years her senior, who owned a string of trampoline parks and had the kind of material generosity that could be mistaken for devotion. She was devout, she was glossy, she was unfailingly positive about her marriage and her faith, and she spent several seasons of television describing Jim as her protector and her provider in ways that made other cast members visibly uncomfortable. He controlled what she wore. He controlled what she said on camera. He showed up to events and positioned himself in conversations in a manner that other women quietly flagged as concerning. Alexis and Jim were in therapy for every single year of their 14-year marriage. She said this herself after the divorce. 14 years of marriage to 14 years of therapy. The two did not advertise this while the cameras were rolling. What viewers saw was the performance of a conservative Christian marriage held together by faith and financial comfort. What was happening behind the scenes was, in Alexis's own words, something that had been too toxic for years, but that she had stayed in because divorce terrified her. She was afraid of what life looked like without the structure Jim had provided. When Jim filed for divorce in June 2018, Alexis described feeling broken and devastated on Instagram. What the divorce settlement revealed was that she received $10,000 a month in alimony, $2,000 per child per month in child support, one of their homes, her jewelry and handbags, and a lump sum of $250,000. Jim kept 2 homes and multiple bank accounts, the stocks and bonds, scanned the trampoline park empire they had built together. Alexis walked away from a marriage that had consumed her 20s and 30s with a monthly payment that, while meaningful, bore little resemblance to the lifestyle she had constructed her entire public identity around. She is now with John Jansen, previously the boyfriend of Shannon Beater, and appears to be genuinely happy, but the path from the Bellino mansion to that happiness ran through 14 years of therapy and a marriage that, by her own account, had been struggling from essentially the beginning. The next story is set in Miami, and it is considerably more recent and more chaotic. Lisa Hochstein arrived on Real Housewives of Miami as the glamorous wife of Lenny Hochstein, a plastic surgeon who had built a practice in Miami, billing himself as the boob god, his words, and who had given his wife a lifestyle that was visible from space. The jewelry, the cars, the parties, the social calendar, the Hochsteins appeared to have everything, and Lisa appeared to be the beneficiary of a spectacular arrangement. A beautiful woman attached to a highly successful, highly visible man who funded her access to a world she could not have built on her own. They had been married 12 years when Lenny filed for divorce in May 2022. The timing was not gentle. Lenny had already been photographed around Miami with a 20-something model named Katerina Mazeppa before he told his wife or the public. Lisa found out the way Real Housewives women seem to perpetually find out these things through the tabloids and the cameras that were already filming her life. She did not know the marriage was over until it was publicly over, which meant she had no time to prepare and no leverage that came from moving first. What followed was 2.5 years of one of the most grinding divorces in franchise history. Lenny cut off Lisa's access to financial accounts. She filed paperwork describing being financially strangled by him and accused him of retaliating against her by restricting her access to funds whenever she pushed back on his demands. She accused him of verbally abusing her and berating her in front of their children. Meanwhile, Lenny accused Lisa of spending $10,000 on Instacart. He accused her of bleeding him dry financially. The divorce was an itemized war over every dollar the marriage had produced. The divorce was finalized in November 2024, more than 2 years after it began. Lenny was ordered to pay $15,000 per month in child support for their 2 children, with payments dropping to $10,000 when their son turned 18. Lisa had signed a prenuptial agreement when they married in 2009, which limited what she could walk away with, compared to what a community property state might have awarded her. By the end, Lisa was also facing criminal charges. She was accused of illegally recording Lenny's phone calls during the divorce proceedings, something her attorney called a matter that does not belong in criminal court. She turned herself in, pleaded not guilty, and the case continues. The woman who had appeared on Miami as a vision of luxury ended up fighting for grocery delivery access and facing arrest during the most public divorce proceeding the Miami franchise has ever generated. The third woman on this list is from Beverly Hills, and her story is the most extreme in terms of the gap between the public performance and the private reality. Erika Jayne met Tom Girardi while working as a cocktail waitress at a Beverly Hills restaurant called Chasen's. He was a titan of California personal injury law, a man who had won hundreds of millions of dollars for ordinary people against corporate giants, a man whose name was on buildings at Loyola Law School, a man who was widely described as one of the most powerful attorneys in the state. He was also 32 years older than her. They married in 2000 when she was 28 and he was 60. The marriage gave Erika access to a Pasadena mansion, private jets, a production budget for her pop music career, and the resources to become a Real Housewives cast member whose lifestyle was one of the most expensive the franchise had ever displayed. Federal prosecutors later established that the production budget for Erika Jayne's entertainment career, the videos, the costumes, the elaborate performances was funded in part by money Tom Girardi had stolen from his clients. More than $25 million was diverted from the Girardi Keys law firm's operating account to pay for expenses connected to Erika's entertainment company, EJ Global. The clients whose money was taken included families of people killed in the 2018 Lion Air Flight 610, crash in Indonesia, people with severe burn injuries, widows of accident victims. They were told their settlement funds were delayed. But they were lied to, while their money paid for the life appearing on television every Tuesday night. Tom Girardi was convicted of wire fraud by a federal jury in August 2024. He was sentenced in June 2025 to 7 years and 3 months in federal prison. He was 86 years old at sentencing. He reported to custody in July 2025. His projected release date is August 2031, when he will be 92. Erika Jayne was named in a civil lawsuit, alleging she knew about the fraud. She denied knowledge of any wrongdoing. She was dismissed from that suit in 2022. She has not been criminally charged. What she has said publicly is that she loved Tom, that the marriage was real to her, and that watching what he actually did with money, whose money it actually was genuinely devastating. The marriage gave her everything she performed on camera. It was built on other people's devastation. That is the specific shape of this particular regret. The fourth entry is from Atlanta, and it moves the needle from financial devastation to something more complicated. A woman who thought she was marrying stability, but discovered she had married into a financial time bomb with a very short fuse. Kim Zolciak was famous before Croy Biermann. She had her RHOA fame, her music, her platform. What she did not have was consistent financial security, and when she met Croy, a young NFL player with money in his bank account and enthusiasm in his eyes, the marriage appeared to solve a problem she had been carrying for years. They married in 2011. He adopted her 2 older daughters. They built a large home in Georgia and filled it with the kind of visible excess that became its own television show, a Don't Be Tardy. The financial problems arrived quietly and then all at once. The IRS filed a lien on their home in 2023 for over $1 million in unpaid taxes. Reports emerged of significant gambling debts. The Georgian mansion went into foreclosure. Kim and Croy both filed for divorce in May 2023, then withdrew the filings to attempt a reconciliation, then refiled. The process has been, in Kim's own words at BravoCon 2025, shocking. It's just every day, just shocking. She said she was told that if she filed, Croy would publicly destroy her, and that she had been told that by Croy himself, who apparently communicated this to her daughters as well. The marriage that appeared to be Kim stepping into financial security turned out to be 2 financially inconsistent people whose spending habits compounded others' instincts for excess rather than stabilizing them. The mansion sold for $2.75 million, a number that did not resolve their debts. The divorce proceedings have dragged through multiple counties, multiple filings, and multiple headlines. Kim eventually accused Croy of cheating as the final straw. The NFL salary that had once seemed like an answer to her financial concerns is long gone from professional football. As of late 2025, the divorce remained unresolved. The 5th case is from Orange County again, and it is the most straightforwardly transactional in its origins. Kim Richards, the original RHOBH cast member, the Disney child star, the woman whose acting career funded the entire Richards family's Beverly Hills lifestyle through her childhood, married Greg Davis in 1988. She had just divorced her first husband, Monty Brinson. Greg Davis was the son of Marvin Davis, a petroleum mogul, and one of the wealthiest men in Los Angeles. The Davis family money was old world rich in the specific way that Beverly Hills understood as permanent. Kim did whatever she wanted with the access that marriage provided. There were no visible constraints on spending. There was no reason to calculate. The Davis money appeared bottomless from the outside, and for a woman who had spent her entire childhood supporting her family on her own earnings, the relief of not being the financial engine must have been real. What the marriage did not provide was happiness. So Kim has never described her marriage to Greg Davis with warmth. The union lasted 3 years and produced 2 children before the divorce in 1991. The same year, Kim's fiancé, John Collett, was murdered outside a deli while she was on the phone with him. The Davis divorce and the Collett murder happened within the same 12 months. Whatever the Davis marriage had been built on, it had not been enough to survive 3 years. What it left behind was complicated. Kim received enough from the marriage to maintain a Beverly Hills lifestyle for years, but the architecture of that lifestyle, the expectation of wealth, the social positioning that came with the Davis name, had been built on access that was no longer hers once the marriage ended. The pattern of marrying wealthy men that Big Kathy had designed for her daughters produced the result Big Kathy wanted for about 3 years. After that, Kim was on her own in ways that the Davis money had temporarily concealed. She spent the rest of her adult life managing the gap between what the Davis years had established as normal and what she could actually generate on her own terms. The 6th and final case on this list is the most genuinely ambiguous because the question of whether Gretchen Rossi married for money or married for love has never been fully resolved, and the way her story ended suggests the honest answer may be both, which is its own kind of complicated. Gretchen Rossi arrived on Real Housewives of Orange County in Season 4, introduced as the fiancée of Jeff Beitzel, a 54-year-old automotive executive who was 24 years older than her. Jeff had been married 5 times before Gretchen. He was already battling leukemia when they got engaged. The diagnosis arrived around the same time as the engagement, which gave the entire relationship an accelerated quality that her castmates, particularly Tamra Judge and Vicky Gunvalson, immediately and loudly questioned. The case against Gretchen, the one Tamra was building publicly across that season, was essentially that Gretchen was not actually in love with Jeff, but was positioning herself to inherit his estate. That she was at parties and social events, instead of sitting at his hospital bedside. That her devotion was performative rather than genuine. Tamra famously organized a dinner party specifically to get Gretchen drunk enough to expose her true colors on the theory that drunk Gretchen would reveal the mercenary calculation underneath the loving fiancé performance. What actually happened was that Jeff Beitzel died of leukemia in September 2008. He amended his trust 1 month before his death. Gretchen received $2.5 million from his estate, collected through life insurance policies and trust allocations. 5 of Jeff's ex-wives were unhappy about this. She was with a dying man. She watched him die. She has spoken about him with what appears to be genuine grief across the years since his death. She also received $2.5 million, and within about a year was dating Slade Smiley, a man she eventually had a child with and remains with to this day. And as the regret, if it exists, is of a different kind than the others. It is not the regret of a woman who chose money and got a controlling husband, or a woman who chose financial security and got fraud, or a woman who chose a rich older man and got her access revoked. It is the regret, if Gretchen has it, of a woman who entered a complicated arrangement, got exactly what she was given, and has spent 15 years having to defend the nature of what she felt for the man who gave it to her. What all 6 of these stories share is a version of the same transaction. A woman exchanges some portion of her autonomy, her future, her identity for access to a life she could not build alone. Sometimes the man who built that life is controlling. Sometimes he is a criminal. Sometimes he is dying. Sometimes he is genuinely unsuited to her, and the therapy proves it across 14 years. Sometimes the NFL salary runs out and the IRS arrives. The show has always sold these marriages as the reward. The diamonds, the houses, the wardrobes, these are the things the cameras frame as evidence of arrival. What the cameras have also documented consistently across every city and every franchise is the aftermath of choosing a life over a person. And the aftermath is almost always more interesting than the arrival.